Welcome to Biblically Lit, conversations that illuminate Scripture and ignite faith. I'm your host, Mindi Furby, author and founder of King's Wind Books. Hi friends, thanks so much for listening. Okay, I know that I say I'm excited for every guest that comes on the podcast, and I definitely am. I really am. But today I'm really excited because my guest is one of my very best friends, Katie Turner. Katie grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is a favorite place of mine and will always have a sweet spot in my heart, and then went to college at the Savannah College of Art and Design, also known as SCAD, for graphic design. She met her husband, Neil, at church in the back row, so don't knock back row Christians, and they got married 1 year and 1 day after their first date. She and Neil have 6 children together, and she is a homeschooling mama who also teaches art whenever she can. She is also a very amazing and talented photographer. I have had the privilege of knowing Katie for over 10 years now, which is crazy. And church really is the best place to meet people because we also met at church, and she and Neil came to our life group or small group or whatever group name it was called for a while. We had the privilege of attending their wedding, which was beautiful, and I'll remember it for lots of reasons, but especially because I was completely nauseous the whole time because I was pregnant and we hadn't told anybody, and so I had to look at the Low Country broil and try not to throw up.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Anyway, and we continued, though, to be close friends throughout the last decade. Katie is a kind of friend who feels like home. She is such a great listener and an encourager. We have spent countless hours in deep conversation about any and all kinds of things, from deep theology topics to politics to painting the toenails of our daughters. She is honest, she is hardworking, she is creative, and she is so talented. She has done some branding and logo work for me and designed one of my book covers too. She is also one of the most genuine, humble, and trustworthy people that you'll ever meet. There's quite a bit about her life that maybe she would say hasn't necessarily gone according to her first plan, but she has handled every twist and turn with grace and dependence on the Lord. Katie is not just my friend. She is my sister in Christ and someone I deeply admire. I am so thankful for her friendship, and I know that you are going to love this conversation. So without further ado, welcome, Katie.
Hi, thank you. You're so nice. You always say such the nicest things.
Well, it's true. It's true. And and the thing you were one of the first people that popped in my head when, I was thinking about doing the podcast and everything, but then I don't know if you were pregnant or just given birth. Anyway, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I didn't want to be like, hey, let's chat. Let's do this. I'm like, let's just breathe for a little bit. But when the first of the year came around, I knew it was time. So tell us about yourself. Tell us your story of faith. Go for it.
Sure.
The mic is yours.
Well, like you said, I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, and
so I'm going to stop you right there. That's a college town, right?
Yes.
And it was back then. I mean, I know it's like Liberty's like 15 times bigger than it was then.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, so technically I lived in Forest, which was
very
like,
close.
yeah. So I didn't really live like in the downtown hub. My grandparents did though. They have this house on the corner of Fort Avenue, and like if you know Fort Avenue, you drive by it all the time.
Yeah.
And they owned a sewing business right there. Like you'd walk out their house and the building for their business is right there.
Wow.
So it was cool. I don't think I appreciated it at the time, and when I got older I was like, I don't want to go to Liberty because they didn't really at that time, they didn't have a ton of stuff. They have so many things now.
Yes.
And I knew that I wanted to do something art related, and that wasn't a huge
it wasn't
area. So, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. And I think it was relatively conservative when I was growing up there. Yeah. And the mall was like the place to be. I don't know. Did you ever go to the mall there?
I did go to the mall. Yeah. I had a friend who worked at a restaurant. It wasn't in the mall, but it was in the parking lot of the mall. And we were there we were there a lot, and it was because it's really close to campus. So it was just, you just like kind of go right there. But anyway, and I know it's obviously, I went back probably 3 or 4 years after I graduated, maybe. And it was insanely different. Like it had grown, it had exploded even since then. And so I haven't been back in a long, long time, but I was kind of scared to go back because I'm like, it's anyway. So I didn't mean to cut you off so soon, but
no,
it's cool.
It's blown up. My cousin still lives in that area, and she's always like, we just got a crumble cookie and we just got this and we just got that. I was like, really? Like, we don't even have a lot of that around here.
Well, and it's just so funny too, because it's in the middle of nowhere. Like Lynchburg is not like by the coast. Like, I mean, it's just like, there's nothing around it. So to have this like metropolis, that's not really a metropolis because it's really just because of Liberty, but it has all these really cool things now. Yeah. It's wild. So, but you're a native, which is just not like, it's very rare.
Yeah. I was born in Lynchburg Hospital, and my dad was from there. My mom was from there. I mean,
really? I didn't know that.
Well, I guess she technically moved from Pennsylvania when she was a kid,
okay. But for the majority
of her adult life, at least, I think she lived there. And
wow.
Yeah, so all my family's from there. My mom's whole side of the family. My dad doesn't have a lot of remaining relatives, but the ones that are alive live there.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I love going back. It's just a little bit nostalgic, and I love that I get to see family and all that. But
yeah, well, especially with a smaller town. Although that's not even true, because every time I go so frequently. But when I go back to California, there's nothing small and homey about it. But it is. It's just like, like this is just where I grew up, and you do have that nostalgic kind of perspective. But anyway, so I've cut you off like 3 words into it. I promise I won't do that.
No,
consistently. But
I love that we both have like a connection there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say for all intents and purposes that I grew up in a Christian home, and I put that in air quotes. You can see that. But.
Smart. See, you're getting the hang of this already. She did the air quotes.
But so I put it in air quotes because my mom, I know, was a Christian. My dad was not. And what that meant for me was basically that we just grew up going to church most Sundays, religious holidays. My mom took me to Awana on Wednesday nights. And I don't know if everybody knows what Awana is. It's just like a children's ministry. Basically, you learn to read and study the Bible, and you memory verses, and they have like
lots of prizes. I was an Awana champ. I got the vest with like the pins. I
don't
know if they still do that. I don't know if they still do that part anymore, but no, Awana, like I go way back with Awana.
Yeah, my kids do it now, and it's very different. Like when I went, we had the Awana Olympics.
Yes.
But I don't know if they do that anymore.
They don't do that part, like just the physical activity part, like that aspect of it.
I mean, they play games, but I don't think Awana Olympics is a thing anymore.
Well, that's sad.
I know. Well, at least my kids have never been asked to go. They kept it a secret from us for a while.
It's like the Fight Club.
Yeah. For sure. It's underground. Bible kids. Yes. Church kids.
Oh my goodness, that's sweet.
But yeah, they do like, what is it? Grand Prix race. What's that little?
You
make a car.
The little race car things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's very different. But I did that weekly, and I just remember, even as like a young child, this very distinct dividing line between my church life, again, air quotes, and then my regular life. Like,
interesting.
My friends were not the same, and I was a very introverted child, like more so than I am now. I still consider myself relatively introverted, but I've gotten a little better about it. But yeah, I remember going to church and like was so shy I didn't want to go to the class that I was supposed to go to. I sat in church with my parents because I just avoided that. And but yeah, nothing about those two parts of my life really ever interacted. And if they did, it was rare. And well, so that's not true. had a best friend down the street, and we invited her to Awana. So she did go with me. But that was like the most
integrated it got.
Yeah, like sort of crossover.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, my mom was a believer. My maternal grandparents were very strong believers and really influenced my life. And I can look back now and I just have so much appreciation for their side of the family, all the kids that they raised, and just the legacy that they left behind. They're not living anymore. My dad wasn't a believer, like I said, and his background is kind of rough. I don't know a ton about it. I know that his mom was a believer. At least she went to church. I didn't really get to know her very long because they didn't live. I was really young when she passed away. And then his dad, I know, was a very hard man. And I think that influenced like kind of how he grew up. And so that sort of shaped him. And then my parents' marriage wasn't their first marriage. My mom was married prior. And her husband died when my brothers were young. I have two older brothers. One is 13 years older and one's 15 years older.
Much older.
Yes. So like by the time, like the earliest memory that I have was basically they lived in the house with us for a short time and then they were like moving out and going to college. And, you know,
because you would have been like 3 or 4 when the first one would be old enough to go out. Wow.
Yeah. And then, so that's on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, I have a half sister who's 4 years older than me. And I only got to see her like every other weekend. But I mean, we had a good relationship as much as you can for that little time together. And I like idolized her and I wanted to be like her. She was older. I just thought she was cooler and she knew everything. And, she kind of always reminded me that she was older than me in little ways. And I think that's like very common for, you know, older siblings. It's not typically meant to be like malicious or
right.
But for some reason that really affected me as a kid. It like, it just created this desire in me to prove that I knew things too. And, and I don't know if it was just like, I didn't want to seem dumb or I didn't want to seem young or something. And I think that it probably would have been a really useful time for someone to say, let no one despise your youth. Right. Or, you know?
Right.
And it actually really like influenced my approach to faith later in life.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it weird how like the smallest, seemingly most insignificant things can shape so much?
Absolutely. Well, because we have such selective memories and the things that make impressions on us when we're young, we remember so little of them, but they can make no sense whatsoever. Like I remember stuff that like some stuff that matters and some stuff that don't, but yeah, I am 100% with you. It is very strange what we kind of latch onto when we're young and how that influences how we approach different things and really how we grow in our personalities and all kinds of things. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Or makes us insecure, which is what that did for me for some reason. So yeah, I just kind of approached life like I wanted to know things. I wanted to find stuff out for myself, which doesn't really go hand in hand with God's word because he says definitive things.
Yes.
And if you decide not to take him for what he says and for his word, that's a big problem later.
Yeah.
And then in middle school, or actually I should back up. So I remember, and my mom remembers because she's told me too, but I remember receiving Christ when I was somewhere between like 7 and 9.
Okay.
I remember the house that we lived in, and I remember I was taking a bubble bath in my parents' big master bath jacuzzi tub, and my mom was just there talking to me, and we were talking about Christ, and I do remember praying to receive Christ, but I feel like at that time, maybe it was more like fire insurance.
Yeah.
There's
something to that when you're young.
Yeah. I think I understood to like the best of my ability at that time,
Right.
but I wouldn't say that. Well, and then you got to consider like kids too. You know them by their fruit is
Yes.
how you Christians, but when you're a kid too, you're also maturing and growing, and so so I struggle with whether that was really my true salvation date time.
But it was at least a notch in the journey, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like sometimes, because I vividly remember giving my life to Christ, and I was a whopping 5 years old. I was sitting with my dad, and I don't know why, but I associated that couch with Oreos. We would get like packages of Oreos and just like sit there and eat while we were doing stuff. But anyway, I don't remember if the Oreos were there or not that particular time, but I do remember sitting on the couch with him, and he led me, and like and this is really going to surprise everybody, I was on fire, like for all my 5-year-old self could be. I was on fire, and I was so excited, and like I knew Jesus now, and like I was all about it. But again, I was 5. I was 5, and there's something beautiful about that childlike faith, right? And even if it was fire insurance, which absolutely was part of that for me, because like when you're a child, but that's kind of the interesting thing too. When you're a child, everything is more simplistic, like heaven, hell. Yeah, I want heaven. Like this isn't rocket science, right? And then as you deepen, that's why I love when Keller said the gospel isn't the ABCs of Christianity, it's the A through Z's. And so you get through that, and then you start really understanding like what you just did. But when you're a kid, that experience is very different, because you are maturing and you're growing up as you're also maturing and growing up in Christ. So you're having to figure out like the physical and emotional and psychological aspects of growing up, but also at the same time what that means spiritually. And so it can be a little complicated, but I also vividly remember times when I was probably 12-ish, 13-ish, in my bed at night with a journal sobbing because I wasn't sure that I actually knew. Like, I know I said the words, but did I really understand? Like, just that questioning the assurance of salvation. Like, I just didn't really have that. And I would pray multiple nights in a row, like, I believe in you. Like I'd write the gospel out, like, Lord, save me. I'm a sinner. Please forgive me. I'm repenting of my sins. Like, come into my life, be my Lord and Savior. And I would do it over and over again until one time he was just like, you're mine. You're mine. You've been mine since I was 5. And I truly believe that. But you're right. There is, when you're young, and especially like as you grow up and are looking back, you're like, I had no idea what I was doing. But I think, which is to be expected, but I don't also think that that's automatically a bad thing. Like, because it starts somewhere. And even if you don't obviously fully understand it, no one really does when they first come to Christ, right? Like there's, I should say no one, but I feel like few people really understand what they're doing in totality when they first give their life to Christ. So anyway, I get that.
Well, I feel like I should also back up, because I put my Christian home in air quotes, but I also didn't really explain beyond that. My dad, he sort of, so we went out to eat a lot. He had, he had a sales job, and I don't think his boss was very nice, and it was kind of a stressful job. And so the way that I think he sort of relieved stress was drinking. And so I think that if you would have asked him then, and I had heard him say it before, but he wasn't an alcoholic. And I think the way that he sort of got around that in his mind was that going out to eat was different. It's like social drinking, and
it's not at home.
It's not at home. You're not doing it by yourself. You don't. And I don't remember as a kid, I don't remember having alcohol like in our house ever. But we sure spent a lot of money going out to eat. So, and I hated it as a kid because it was so boring, I guess.
Right.
So, and my mom, I know she was a Christian, and we've talked about this before, and her testimony is her testimony. And, but she said, you know, it was sort of just like, I don't know the word I'm trying to say. It was like, it was just sort of, yeah, it was just social. And I think she realized that it was a hard job and that it was a stress relief, but it was very much like a hidden secret thing from my family, especially like my grandparents. I remember going out to dinner with them, and he would just order a Coke. But then, you know, after the server left the table, he would leave the table and catch her and say, "Can you make it a rum and Coke?" And so it was like a very
sneaky, like,
yeah. And I remember looking back then, and, you know, it was sort of like a funny thing, but yeah, so alcohol kind of played a major role in my life as a kid. And we didn't obviously realize it at the time. Right. And it was just a very common thing to me. Right. And then I guess moving to middle school, we moved to Florida, like in the middle of middle school. So I didn't even finish my middle school, my 5th grade year, and we moved to Florida. And that was, my dad had gotten a new job in West Palm. And my mom has also said this. She said that she felt like it was sort of like an escape for her to be away from like the conviction and the scrutinizing eye that comes with knowing people very closely in Lynchburg, which is, you know,
small
like
town.
a small town. So, you know a lot of people, and having our whole family there was difficult to keep that away. So, but for me, it was just like, man, I'm an introvert, and this is a lot. Super hard.
Yeah. Well, especially as a kid, especially like in the middle of middle school, and especially when you're a homebody and you're the introvert and you like things, you know, the way that they are. That's a huge upheaval, and that's like not the next town. I mean, that's a whole, and from Virginia to Florida.
Yeah. It's a stark contrast.
Yeah. No kidding.
I mean, my school that I went to a small private Christian school, and it was largely, so like the way the building was, they had main building sections, but to get from building to building, you walked on like an outdoor ramp. Like it was like a hallway, outdoor hallway. It was just open air, you know? And I thought that was so weird. I was like, Florida is where you go to Disney World. How do people actually go to school here? Do people go to school in Florida? I vividly remember thinking that as a kid. Like, it was just bizarre to me. And then the, you know, humidity difference and the weather, and walking from class to class was like, we should be at the beach or something.
This does not feel like this is like a vacation day, not a school day. That's funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did make friends, and I don't know. It wasn't a overtly Christian life, despite going to a Christian school. I did go on a missions trip. I remember that. And I remember being convicted during that time. That was closer to high school, though. And during my high school years, I developed a really unhealthy relationship with a guy. And I remember being on that mission trip and being convicted. Like, I needed to let that go. But I couldn't, and I didn't. And I don't know if it was a comfort thing or if it was just like you know, you're a teenage girl and you get so mixed up in your head about what you think is right or good. And so, I mean, I carried on to that through college off and on, and even like a little bit out of college, but I guess that's down the road in my story. So then in high school, my junior year, but I think I remember needing to, during this time, I remember trying to prepare for the SATs, and that was huge. I mean, I knew I was going to art school. I was like, why do I need to take SATs? But I did dual enrollment classes during my junior or senior year, and these particular classes were at night. my mom was away in Virginia. My grandmother had Alzheimer's, and so she was kind of in the last couple of years of her life. And so my mom was visiting her, and I had a class, and it got out early. And so it was just right down the street too, or like right around the corner from where I lived. And so I came home early, and there was this strange car in my driveway, and I thought, oh, that's weird. It must be like a coworker or something. And so I go in the house, and my dad was like right there at the door. And he flung open the door, and the music was blasting, which he often did. He listens to classic rock, and so he often did that when he was drinking. So I kind of knew the situation. But this time, I do remember him having alcohol in the house in Florida, but I don't know if he had been out during this time. But I remember, so when you walk into that house, there's a living room kind of right in front of you, and then the kitchen's off to the right. And the master bedroom's like diagonally across from the front door. And that was really never closed, but it was closed. And so I don't know what came over me, but I was just like, something's not right. And basically there was another woman in the house, and the rest is kind of a blur. And like, even like retelling the story, I feel like my heart racing, and it was just it was awful. I just left. I mean, she left, but then I was like, I'm leaving. And so I ended up going to my friend's house and staying the night there. And I remember my dad saying before I left, he's like, after tonight, everything is changing. Yeah. Like, nothing is going to be the same. And yeah, so I just left. I stayed at my friend's house. I didn't want to be there with him, obviously. And
but like, what was he was like, he was like putting that on you, like, because now you know about it, so like everything's changing. Like,
I think it was sort of like I don't even know. It was sort of like a indirect cry of like, don't tell your mom. And you know, like, so it's almost sort of an appeal to just like, our family's going to be torn apart
because of you, which is just not.
And I mean, those are
I
not
know,
like the literal.
I know.
But it's just what I got the sense of. And so I had a thought and I lost it.
It's okay.
It happens quite often.
You have a lot of kids, a lot of little kids.
And well, so then incidentally, my mom was coming home the next day.
Oh.
Yeah. So the timing was just weird, which I'm glad I didn't have to live with that for a whole weekend.
That's
but
right.
I didn't go to school the next day. I stayed at home at my friend's house, and her mom didn't ask. I still love her mom so much. She's just wonderful. But, so my mom came home, and I remember going home, and because my dad actually picked her up from the airport. The closest airport is West Palm, so that's a 45-minute ride from where we live. So he had a whole ton of time to spend whatever story he wanted to spend. So I got home from school, and they were home, and she kind of came to my room and was like, oh, your dad told me about the incident with his friend from work.
Oh, my word.
And I just looked at her, and I was like, I just shook my head, and I was like, he's lying. He's just lying. And I told her everything, and they had that conversation out in the back porch, and I don't know what was said. And I don't really remember the preceding, like, days or weeks or even months, but at some point he changed his life. And I remember, like, talking to my mom. She said, in church even since I was a kid, she would always be praying that my dad would be saved. Mm-hmm. And he would even walk away from church some weeks being like, he almost got me, he almost got me this week. And I don't know. But he did. His life was different. It was different for a really long time too. And he had genuine remorse and genuine change, fruit even of this life change. And we were baptized together because when I got saved as a kid, I never got baptized. And I guess I have a whole thing about that too, because that was really not my decision. It was sort of like a prompting in my family of like, you should be baptized, but it wasn't my choice. So I revisited that later in life, and we can talk about that later maybe. But but yeah. But just spoiler alert, it didn't stick. I mean, he could be saved. He could be a completely lost or just,
prodigal kind of situation. How long was he changed for? Like, how long did you think that he was bearing fruit, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, so shortly after that, I left for college. So that was at least 4 years.
Okay.
So at least a solid 5 years.
I mean, that's not an insignificant amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, he was involved in our church in Florida. He even was a leader in a recovery program for alcoholics, hang-ups, addictions, I think. Celebrate recovery. That's like their little tagline. But and so it seemed very genuine. We had a really good relationship for a couple years too. And I mean, he was my favorite person for a while. And then later in my adult life, he just more or less walked away from our family. He got involved with some other woman over some social media game on his phone.
What?
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, the devil is just, I don't even know how to describe it. And you just think sometimes like, how could that person? Right. And I still ask how. And we don't really have a relationship. We have talked since then, and I've tried, but so much of his life is just kind of secretive and elusive. And so I'm like, you can't have a relationship.
No. Well, and it sounds like he had years of practice kind of doing that before, just trying to hide things in a small town and keep up appearances and doing all the other stuff. So it's a hard habit to break, and it's an easy one to fall back into. And lying, I think, was very much part of his. Oh yeah. He's just a good liar. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. So that was kind of my high school situation. That was a really transformative sort of time. And so then into college, I had this season of rebellion, and I go back to the whole self-reliance thing, the needing to figure it out for myself. And I knew it was right and I knew it was wrong. And I know that the Holy Spirit was pursuing me, especially during this time. But I just, I was drinking. I mean, that was, set ahead before me. But I did go to Savannah College of Art and Design. It's an art school. It's in Savannah. You can walk around with open containers in Savannah. It's not like very easy to get away from, even if I didn't have that influence in my life. And so drinking, promiscuity, procrastination, and like recreational drug use, and just figuring it out. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. And just, I guess, searching for fulfillment. And during this time, I know I just had so much anxiety, and anxiety is like an epidemic now. It really is. It really is. But
a direct result, I think, of sin, at least for me. It's just, even if it's just as simple as like worrying so much that you have anxiety, but I was procrastinating on all of my projects because I was out doing stuff that I wanted to do. And that created anxiety. And I was in bad relationships that created anxiety. And, drinking made it, numbed it. And
downward spiral.
Yeah.
All the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember being, this is dumb, but I remember after a night of drinking, I remember being, and supposedly the driver was not drinking, but I wouldn't have known. But I remember being in the back of a pickup truck, and I remember being on the way home to my friend's house, like literally to the pickup truck. It wasn't like 2-row pickup truck. It was like the back. And I remember, even in my drunken stupor, I remember thinking like, I could die right now. And nothing changed at that exact moment, but I didn't know where I was going to go if I did. And that is terrifying to think of, but I think of just how kind God was in not letting me go. And I remember having conversations with people who were not Christians, and I'm like, but do you think about that? What do you think about it? Where are you going to go when you die? Do you worry about that? And these people are not concerned with that. Right. I mean, at least to my knowledge. So yeah, that was my situation at that time. And when I was thinking about my testimony, I was like, and I was listening actually to one of your other episodes, that it's just this wholesome Christian background and like start in life. And I was like, this feels embarrassing, but I think we have to mortify our sin, like we 100%. We have to change our minds. I mean, that's what repentance is. And so it's not fun to think about or talk about. And I can see just in the way that some of the people that I know and the testimonies that I've heard have lived and are living, I just see such a sweet life. And I feel sad because I could have had that even in my family circumstances. But that's not my story, and that's okay. That's fine. And I can be a cautionary tale for somebody. But I didn't stay there. Yes. I didn't stay there. I
was going to say, because anybody who met you now would have no idea that there would be anything cautionary about how you, about your past at all.
Right. Well, I texted a friend and I was like, I'm nervous. I realized I've never actually been asked to give my testimony.
Oh my goodness.
Like formally, like I talk to my friends about, my life and things, but I was like, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised maybe about my past. Like
for sure.
Because art school girl, I mean, you don't have to think very hard to think about the things that kids do in art school, but.
Well, in Savannah too.
Yes,
I mean, it has reputation for all kinds of fun things.
Yeah. So Savannah is a very bittersweet place for me. I mean, I love it because it's beautiful and interesting and inspiring.
Yes.
Especially from an art perspective. But it also is just like, I remember going there.
Memories. Yes. A lot of memories.
Yeah. So, so after graduation, I ended up back at home. And of course, remember, my family life is pretty stable and solid at this time with my parents and everything. But I nannied for a summer, and that made me see real fast that I did not want to be a nanny anymore. So it lit a fire under me, because a lot of my SCAD peers were graduating and they had a job that they were going straight to. And that was a very sort of like low for me. That was like, I'm graduating and I have no job prospects.
Yeah.
So I went home and nannied, and then I applied for jobs online, and I ended up getting a job in South Carolina. And I mean, she flat out told me, my employer told me, she was like, I wanted you to come because you were from SCAD. It's like, oh, great.
It does have a really great reputation in the art world.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I mean, some church friends asked me about it because they know I went there, and I was like, I really cannot recommend it because
from a social kind of,
well,
it's a whole scene.
It is. And I cannot imagine how much it's changed. I mean, I graduated in 2012. Can you imagine what it's probably like?
Yeah. Well, and especially with how much just culture at large has changed, and art schools are usually on the forefront of the more liberal things in life.
For sure.
How much just that's changed in the last 13 years.
And art kids in general, they're just weird anyway. So, and I say that as an art kid. We are
weird. I can say it because I am one of them. That's so funny.
Oh, yeah. So that's how I ended up in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I got a job and I lived here for about 1.5 years, and I had in the back of my head that I wanted to find a church, but I wasn't really actively pursuing finding one until a coworker suggested one. And so we were supposed to go together, but he didn't end up going. And I mean, we were just friends.
Right.
I found out later he was interested in being more than friends, but it was not. It was for me that it was never. Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, we're both sort of introverted, and we could go find a church together. Which was actually a very good thing that he did not come, because I met my future husband that day.
It was the first day.
Yes,
the first day you came. I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I don't know if it's supposed to say names, but do you know the Littles, Bobby Little?
Yeah.
Yes. So I showed up alone, and so naturally I sat in the back row.
Yes.
And it was her and her husband at the end of the row. This just sweet older couple.
Yeah.
And so then I scooted in the row, and it was me, like a couple seats away from them, me, and then basically the whole rest of the row. Yeah. And so the music's going, and this particular church had really loud music and lights and things. And so she comes over and she's talking to me. She's like, what's your name? Where are you from? And all this stuff. And just the sweetest lady. And she said, and I told her, and she said, well, we just need to find you a young man to sit next to. I was like, okay, well,
this is more than what I was wanting. But
So she left. She left the row.
Oh my goodness.
I found out later she went and talked to the sound booth guys, like Corey and Jordan Whetstone. And they're like, this cute blonde girl needs a young man to sit next to. And they, I guess obviously were busy, but they texted Neil.
Oh my word.
And Neil had just finished service. He went to the first service.
Okay.
I was at the second service. And what Neil's routine typically was that he went to the first service, had breakfast with friends, and then went to work, because he had his jet ski business at the time, and they were still open on Sundays. And so the sound booth guys texted him, and like they said, there's a cute blonde girl in the back row and she needs someone to sit next to. And so he stops everything, turns around.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he was supposed to have breakfast with Havilah. And I keep saying all these people because Minnie and I both know who they are. But yeah, I'm a mutual friend now, and they're great friends now. But he was supposed to go to breakfast with her, and he ditched her, and he came and sat next to me. And so I told you the whole row was open. Yes. He came and he sat directly next to you. Yeah. He's like, hi, I'm Neil.
Which is so Neil.
Yes.
And so just pause for a second, because Katie and I mean, we just were nearly instant friends, and it didn't take me long to figure out that she is very much like my husband, Sean, and just the steady one, just kind of low key, kind of more the introvert, like just steady. And Neil and I are like a little much sometimes, so that doesn't surprise me at all. That is quintessential Neil.
Yeah, I like to say he can talk to wallpaper and it'll talk back.
He'll have a conversation anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So he sat right next to you,
right
introduced
next to
himself, and the rest, as they say. is history.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was your first Sunday. Like I knew that, but I didn't realize that was like your very first time. Also, shout out to the elderly. Like a part of me, seriously, I've thought about this in recent months. At what point do you get to the point where you just like can do whatever you want to do and no one can bat an eye at it because you're the elderly woman? Like I want to be that chick.
Yeah.
I want to be the woman who's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and y'all can just like laugh and do whatever. They'll like take you seriously, but then I'm gonna get stuff done. That is so funny. Oh my goodness!
And they came to our wedding too.
Oh
yeah. I mean,
so
and we
cool.
really didn't remain in touch after that, but I just appreciated that so much about her.
Oh.
But yeah, and then he, right after service, he introduced me to another girl who was facilitating a life group, small group, whatever, at her house. And I didn't have my phone. So I don't know why I left it in the car, but I didn't have it with me. And so naturally I had to give him my number. So he could text me the information about the life group.
We're dropping some tricks for you, for those of you who are not yet married.
I mean, it was. But so she gave me all the information, and I ended up showing up to that life group, and he was not there.
Oh.
Yeah. And he showed up late.
Oh.
And I sat next to another guy who apparently was new too.
Okay.
And Neil, I just have to say this story because he will kick me if I don't, because it's like his favorite story in the world. But he comes in and have a look. Again, I don't know if I should be saying it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No.
But she thinks it's funny. She knows we've talked about it and laughed. But she was like, you will never guess who ditched me this morning. And she's announcing this to like the guys because she knows them. And I'm sitting there and I am like acutely aware of what she's saying. And then she's like, Neil ditched me for some cute blonde girl. And Jeremy, another gentleman, he's just looking at me and he's like, has his face like, you need to stop talking.
She's the blonde girl.
And then Neil did finally arrive and she was like, I'm really sorry. I just threw you under the bus. And he was like, what are you talking about? And so, so he showed up finally and we sort of caught up after it was over. And then he will say that I proceeded to ignore him for the next month and a half.
Oh.
Yeah. Which he was always in the back of my mind.
Right.
But what was actually happening was that God was really working in me during that time, and I needed that time.
Yeah.
And so I had attended that church again a couple times, and one particular Sunday I went and they had a call for volunteers. Like they were just like, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
You need to step up. And so I felt that conviction. And so I did. I filled out the thing and I signed up, but I wasn't really a member. And so one of the pastors and then an associate, I don't even think it was associate pastor, but just two of the leaders, talked to me and they were like, we want to know about you. We want to know your story. And I remember sitting in his office and being like, sort of telling them my story, but I just kept going back to my dad. And they're like, but what about you? And I was like, well, what about me? And so I went home that day and I fell on my knees and I was like, I am done doing it myself because this is clearly not working and I am miserable. And I just gave it up. And so I recognized that day as my date of salvation, which was in 2013. And so, that was it. It was a very much putting off of the old self, and God was, pruned away unhealthy relationships and habits. And I didn't stop drinking at that time. Like it was just, but it wasn't like, obviously wasn't as rampant as I was in college, but it was also, it was just a social casual thing.
Right.
But it was very much a season of becoming uncomfortable with the way that I previously was. And so, so then, you know, a month and a half later, Neil and I went on our first date. And that was when I stopped drinking. And it was interesting because he had close friends, older friends that he worked with that were basically, they were like second parents to him. And because Neil's parents lived at the time in Virginia, actually. And so he had this couple, but he had told them that first of all, he wanted to marry a blonde girl. He incidentally wanted to marry an artist.
Oh my goodness.
And this particular person could not drink. Like drinking was very much a big no in his family all of his life. He's never touched alcohol. His dad has never,
Wow.
Yeah. And so, so when we started dating, and I didn't really know this, and he never asked me, he was like, he never said, I would prefer you not drink or this is not okay.
Right.
And it was sort of, we celebrated New Year's together, I guess shortly after we started dating, because we got married a year and a day after our first date. So then it would have been that January, but I just chose not to. I mean, we were with other friends and my friends did drink and I just chose not to. And he said, I knew that day that I loved you and I was going to tell you that I loved you. Because you chose me over you. And I know that was a very social thing. And you could have easily, but you didn't. And so that was kind of how that ended. And I have not had alcohol since. And so that was kind of cool because I don't know, I was in bad relationships and I think I wanted to fill that space. I was afraid to be alone. And I don't think that Neil was like a sort of, I think it could be easily seen as he was just sort of like this replacement. So I still felt comfortable. I think God just used him. I'm not saying this very well. I think God used him in multiple ways.
Right. There's multiple layers.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And so I don't know. He loves our story. He loves to tell it though. He's sort of very,
I'd say I'm surprised, but I'm not. I'll have to have him on next time.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be kind of cool.
That would be fun.
We need to get a third mic though, so you can keep him in line a little bit too.
Yeah, you hear that, babe? I know he's going to listen to this. You got to come on. He's like, I can't wait to listen to it. I was so nervous. He's like, you're going to do great. It's going to be so awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, he's such a cheerleader.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I have memories of you guys. I don't know how you ended up at our group, but you ended up at our group.
I don't know either.
I don't know. But you were.
Were we there before we were married?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's why you invited us to your wedding. And honestly,
yes,
I don't think you were there long before you got married. Because honestly, Sean and I were a little surprised we got an invitation. We were like, oh, well, that's cool. Yeah. Only because we knew that it was going to be, you had like a really strict number of guests that you could invite. Like you had, I don't know why or how that all worked out, but just the way that the wedding was, like there was just a very strong cap, like, and you guys have a ton of family. And so there were very few chosen ones who could come as friends, and somehow we made that list. And so I remember being like, oh, wow, we get to come. And fun story too, it was now known as the Mansion. That was the first time we ever came into this neighborhood. And when we drove through that gate, we'd never been, we didn't really, I mean, we knew it was there, but like thought about, we drove through the gate and Sean's like, we're living here. We're living here one day. Like it's beautiful because it like there's land and there's just a lot of space and there's character at the homes. Anyway, but like literally it was your wedding that he fell in love with this neighborhood, and then we ended up moving there a few years after that. So all kinds of fun things going on. But yeah. But I was also very, very, well, I was like 14 weeks pregnant. We hadn't told anybody yet. I was so sick. I was so sick. And then I remember, actually it was kind of nice though, because it was freezing. It was like really abnormally cold because it was November 1st.
Yes,
and
it was the coldest day of the year that year. Yes. So I'm told. The day before was like 71 degrees and perfect. Yes. And then my wedding day
was like 40 something. I mean, it was like, and here, like people from elsewhere are laughing, but like that's really, really, really cold. And that's for here. And it's really cold in November. Like we get some cold days in January and February, but like not November, and not November 1st. Like it just came out of nowhere, but it kind of helped because I feel like it like shocked my system a little bit. Like just breathe some cold air, breathe in and out. But I do remember that low country broil just like spread out, and I'm just like, yeah. Sean's like, do you want anything? I was like,
And we will never live that down either, because we had so much family traveling from all over. And Neil's mom says that her dad was like, are you sure we don't need a jacket? And she was like, are you kidding me? It is left in South Carolina. You are not going to need... People were buying jackets. Like,
I mean, yeah, well,
every store nearby probably was sold out.
Because it was so cold and it was so quick. I was like, is it going to be outside, or is the whole thing going to be outside? I don't know how I should dress.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it was. But
I was shivering at the altar too. I remember because I was like nervous too. Was that visible?
No,
it wasn't. That's good.
No, you look very, it was beautiful. Oh my goodness. Everything about that was beautiful. But yeah, I'll never forget it for like, Neil, God used Neil. I'll never forget that for lots of layers of reasons. Yeah. It's just a lot, all the things colliding. So you meet Neil, you guys, God is working miraculously in your life and changing you from the inside out, and is using Neil to do that, but then also other things as well. So you guys get married. It was beautiful and wonderful, but let's back up a little bit, because I knew this before, but you didn't think that having children was going to be a real possibility for you, or at least it wasn't going to be easy. So kind of tell us about that and briefly, you don't have to go into like super elaborate detail, but just.
Well, so before we got married, I went to the doctor, and I more or less found out that, not more or less, I found out. I was just having some issues, and so she did an ultrasound on my ovaries, and we discovered that I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. And like the main symptom is infertility. And so I think you can struggle with it to varying degrees. But yeah, she just said, it may be difficult or impossible for you to get pregnant. And Neil and I had a conversation about birth control prior to getting married, and we both felt very convicted that it was just not something that we were going to we just didn't want to participate in, for lots of reasons. And I have my suspicions about why PCOS often occurs, which I think can be related to birth control, but which I was on prior, but that was for quote unquote other reasons, like regulatory reasons.
Right.
And so we kind of went into our marriage knowing that, and we had sort of a mourning period of what our ideal sort of parenthood life or journey might look like. So it was just sort of recognizing like this may not go the way we want to. We both knew that we wanted kids. And so yeah, that was kind of a big discussion for us.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. Like to find out before you even get married, like this might not happen, and you need to brace yourself for that. And that just like kills all kinds of dreams right away. So you're dealing with, one of the biggest decisions and moments of your life, and that is starting a marriage. But then also that is also in the back of your mind too. It's like, well, and this is great and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but also there is that cloud kind of hanging over it where it's like, man, that's not the way that
I thought this was going to go.
Where I wanted it to go.
Yeah. So we got married, and I was just like, well, I mean, it's not like we have to worry about birth control anyway.
Right.
So it just not happened.
Right. But then.
But then we got married, and I got pregnant right away.
Right?
Yeah.
Right away.
Right away. Honeymoon souvenir.
I have to share on that too. I'm gonna let you get back to your thing, but
No.
That it was so funny. So I am just, I don't know if gullible is the right word, but like I can't tell when someone's serious all the time or not. And Neil is like, he messes with people.
Oh yes,
like
that's much enjoyment out of it.
That's what kind of something that he does. And so we were at dinner with them at just like a local restaurant, just like catching up or whatever. And this is probably, I don't know, January. It was January. I remember January. It was early in the year.
You hadn't had Leland. You were pregnant.
No, I was pregnant with her, but we had like announced it and everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure it was January because you got married, November 1st. So it was, anyway, but it was very, very early on in the year. And we're just like talking and having fun. And then like all of a sudden, I don't even know like how it came up, but Neil's like, well, we can't do it in August because that's when the baby's coming. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, but then I didn't know. Because like, if you know me and if you tell me you're pregnant, I'm gonna freak out. I'm super excited. Like, yeah, you're right. Like I get very, very excited about these kinds of things. So, but I didn't know if he was messing with me. And so like my excitement was delayed for a minute because I was like, what did he just say? It was just so like random. And I was like, did you say baby? Like, really? Because I knew, because we had talked and I knew like, you know, pregnancy was probably going to be difficult and all this other stuff. And so like, I was shocked for all kinds of reasons, but I very distinctly remember being like, wait, what? And it was very exciting. Well, you know, for me, I know you weren't feeling great and all this other stuff, but, but it was very exciting. So how did that go? Like finding out that you're pregnant right away. Like that's a whole nother, it didn't go exactly as I was anticipating.
Yeah. Well, so many emotions and feelings. I mean, as you can imagine, Neil was ecstatic.
Right. He's like, yes.
Yeah. But for me, it was sort of like, wow, seriously? This is nuts. And then it kind of moved to like, why? Why now? Like, God,
right.
What are you serious? I don't even know how else to put it. It was just sort of, and then it kind of went into, oddly enough, just like weird disappointment because, so I was working and I had this idea, this sort of ideal vision for our marriage that we would be married for 2 or 3 years before we'd even really start thinking about that.
Right.
And, you know, marriage is new and you have this whole new experience of like living together and what that looks like and navigating different things and personalities and preferences. And I was looking forward to sort of like that.
Settling in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, now we're throwing this whole new thing on top of that. And at the time as well, I was, you know, before we found out that I was pregnant, I mean, obviously I was crazy hormonal and, Neil told me that he's like, I literally thought that you lost your mind. I was like, this is not the woman that I married. And it is funny. It's funny to look back on, but like during that time, the first 7 months of our marriage were really hard. I think we were dealing with baggage from our previous life before I really felt I was saved. And Neil in his own past and things that we had talked about and dealt with prior to marriage. But then as we got married and then this, this whole new dynamic came in, right. We were sort of still sorting through that. So we were in marriage counseling but then we found out I was pregnant. So I was like, clearly this is also exacerbated.
Situation, yes.
Yeah. So there was that. And, it was wild. It was, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and I remember walking with you through it just a little bit. I mean, I was there. We weren't like, hip on hip, buddy, but we were around. And I do remember you just well, it was a lot. It was a lot. And also you were like almost a new Christian too. Like God was just really teaching you. It's like you're going through discipleship on speed. Like it was just like a lot all at once because you're being sharpened and kind of going through the refiner's fire of being a newlywed. But then you're also going through that process of just really understanding what Christianity is and what your faith in Christ looks like and what's expected and also like what it's supposed to be as opposed to the nominal kind of social aspect that you had of it growing up. And then you're pregnant, which is just shocking because you've been told that you can't, or it's going to be very difficult to get pregnant. And so, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I felt like we were in the Disney World Fast Pass line.
Yes.
It was like, we're anticipating this ride, but we didn't know it was going to come so fast.
And we're on it and I don't know what to do and we're not in control of anything. Yeah. And now you're going to bring a baby into this world and it's like, you don't have anything figured out yet. And you're right. Cause you feel like when you think about having children, you want things to be settled and you want to figure things out first. And you guys didn't really have the ability to do that. And so, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But continue going. I know you have.
Yeah. Did you want to do the questions or do you just want to keep going?
Okay. Yeah, we'll just keep doing. So motherhood. Well, and it's funny too, because we entered motherhood very, very differently. So
I was surprised to learn that you guys didn't really know if you wanted to have kids.
Yeah, we didn't know. And that's the funny thing. So really brief story when Sean and I've shared this briefly before, but when Sean and I met, I didn't want to get married at all. Like at all. I never wanted to get married. Not because I'm like anti-marriage, but like I was going into full-time ministry and I wanted to be like female Paul. Like that was my drive. Like that's what I was doing. And Sean had just gotten out of bad relationship. And so we met for coffee. And again, I've said this before, but I called it an interrogation. And I was just like, let's just get this over with. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Let's figure out all the reasons why this isn't going to work and then part ways and go on with our married little life. And I left that night confused because there were no red flags or orange flags or yellow flags. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like there's always some. He walked away knowing he was going to marry me. And so like a couple months go by, like it just was the right thing. It was of the Lord. Like we both knew it and God used Neil, God used Sean because I was going through a really difficult time of healing from anorexia. And like, again, Sean didn't fix that, but God used him in crazy intense ways to aid in that healing process. And I don't think he even knew that at the time. But anyway, one of those things that we talked about early on was kids. Clearly, that's like kind of a big deal when you're talking about marriage. And we were both kind of like, if it happens, cool. But neither one of us were like, not excited about it. I don't think that's the right word, but like, I was never the girl growing up, like pretending
you had
to be the mom. Like no, it wasn't. Like, I just didn't, I don't care isn't the right word, but I was just indifferent about it. Like, if I didn't live for the idea of being a mom. And it was especially interesting because we had friends we were pretty close with who were experiencing infertility. And like, she lived to be a mom. Like, she really, really, really wanted to be a mom. And that like, so I had to kind of process just biblically, okay, I've never had to really think about it before, but like, she's like so opposite side of the spectrum. And it was unhealthy. I mean, it really was. Like she was making an idol out of it. But then I had to do a check too. Like, should I care at all? I don't know. Like, I feel I'm a woman. Like, I feel like I should care about this. And so really the thing that went for us was we were, I think, getting close to 30. And I was like, if we are going to do this, I really don't want to be like a really old parent. Like, I just don't want to. Like, this is literally all that went into this. And so we were like, well, I mean, I guess we can just remove the goalie. Like, let's just see what happens. And I had been on birth control because, again, that's just what you did. Like, I was put on it when I was a teenager to regulate things too. And like, you and I have had conversations about this, and I want to do like mad research and do an episode on this too. But like, it's dangerous. Yeah. It's so dangerous, and it messes with so many things. And so I had heard even at that time that it can take months after being off of it for your body to like get to a place where it's even able to conceive. And so I didn't have high expectations at all. And so Sean and I, when we talked about the possibility, it was just very much, let's just see what happens. And we're not going to get to, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, okay, well then that's what the Lord wants. And again, having friends who were like struggling with infertility immensely and like very much caught up in wanting a baby, I think also kind of helped temper our emotions about it, because we kind of saw what it was doing to them. And we were like, let's just not go there. It's in the Lord's hands. He really was just keeping his sovereignty on the forefront of that discussion. But then, so like our stories don't start at all the same, but we do have something in common in the sense that it happened immediately.
Right
away. literally right away. And to the point where I didn't even take a test. Like, I was like 7 weeks by the time 6 or 7 weeks, because I had gone to a conference with my mom. Oh, I was late, but then I was like, well, maybe that's a birth control. Like, I'd gone off birth control. So I'm sure that there's going to be some fluctuation and everything. So I had gone to a Bible conference with my mom, and I felt really weird. Like, I had a cold, but like, it was nausea. Like, but it didn't feel like, I don't know. I just
normal.
Felt really,
it is a different kind.
Yes, it's a different kind. And I just felt very strange. And I was like, I don't know, like I did have a head cold, but then I don't know. It was just very weird. And then I got back and I was like, I mean, I guess it's possible, but I was sneaky about it though. Cause I was like, I didn't want to like make it a thing. Like and then I didn't also, because our friends, I was like, I don't want to be like arrogant and be like, assume that I'm pregnant. Like, I don't know. I was just, it was a weird situation. And so, but I did. So I went and I like totally bought a pregnancy test, sneaky, like on the sly. And I like came home and I was drinking like so much water, like just trying, because like I have to pee a lot. So I was drinking like so much water. And then I don't even know, like, I guess John was just like I don't know what he was doing, but I'm in the bathroom, I took it and I was just shocked, I was like, it like the next day it happened. Like I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for this. Like, if it ever happened, that it would be gradual. Like, it would just, but it happened like so fast. And so we didn't tell anybody for a while. Like, we didn't tell family till like 14, 15 weeks, because we needed time to just like process this. Yeah. And we went to the same church at the time, but Sean was also involved at the praise team, and I didn't tell him that night. I was like going to do this cute little, reveal, cause I'm weird like that. But I remember going to the store and buying like the most gender neutral shoes that I could find. And then like a little card, like little baby shoes. And then a little card that said, guess what? And so I met him after church when he was done serving. So we were standing in the parking lot. Like, in retrospect, this was not great, but we're standing in the parking lot, and I give him the present, and I don't remember saying anything. And I'm like, here. And he gets the card and he opens it, which again, it only said, guess what? And then he pulls out the baby shoes, and he just like goes 5 shades of white. Like, just like, and he's like, like, just like, and then he says so profoundly, how do you know? How do you know? I was like, well, there's a few ways that I know, but But yeah, I mean, because just like it was shocking to me, it was shocking to him. But then he did ban me for the rest of our marriage that I'm never allowed to take a pregnancy test without him.
That's so funny.
You have to. In fact, this was like, I guess it was last year. Maybe it was last year. It was after our fourth daughter was born, and we were not planning on having any more. And I was late, and I'm never late, like that late. And it was like 10 days late, and it was like really maybe a week. But anyway, it's really weird. And so I texted him, and I was like, "Hey, look, I just even realized I'm late. I'm think it might be wise to get it. I'll pick one up the next time I'm at the grocery store or whatever." So he freaks out. He's at work and he's freaking out, and he's like, "No, you have to get one now." And I was like, "I'm not going to get one now." Like, the girls were dancing later that day. So I was like, "Well, wait until I drop him off at dance. I'll go get a test, and like, that'll be it." He's like, "No." So he opens an account at CVS.com, orders a pregnancy test, and has it delivered to the house within an hour. So Lord knows how much he spent getting this pregnancy test to the house, like ASAP. I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" So anyway, I wasn't pregnant, but it just, so he was like very intense about this whole situation. Yeah. So anyway, yes. So we did not know that, we didn't really think we necessarily wanted children. We were just really trusting the Lord with that. And then we had 4. Yeah. We had 1. I was like, well, I want at least 1 more. And then I was like, well, and then actually 3 was, we were thinking about adopting. Mm-hmm. We were thinking about, so we had 2, and we were really thinking about fostering or adopting. And then through a series of events, God just made it clear, like, that was not the path that he wanted us to take. And so we were like, okay, well, I guess we'll have number 3. And then Sean was very much done. And then I came to a point where, I thought I was too, but then I came to a point where I'm like, we have 1 more car seat. Yeah. We have 1 more seat in the car. We have like
3 is an odd number.
3 is a weird number. Like, you like symmetry. Let's do that. And so that's how Jessley was actually, he said, it was our 10-year anniversary, and you honeymooned to Nashville too, right? Or you went,
what is it called? Why am I forgetting?
Well,
it's what is it called? Oh, Pigeon Forge.
Okay. So mountain.
Yeah.
Mountain-ish.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I'm remembering. But we went to Asheville. Anyway, he took me to the same cabin for our 10-year anniversary. And one of my gifts for my 10-year anniversary was, okay, fine, we can get pregnant again. I was like, oh, you're so romantic. Thank you. But anyway, so motherhood both hit us fast from very different places. And then we had them pretty quickly. Like, ours is every 2 years. And you and I had a very similar cadence for a minute. And then you started just, going a little faster.
Yep.
But our first children are only 3 months apart. And our second children, so she had a son first, and I had obviously all girls, but number 2s, I was actually thinking about this today, 7 weeks apart to the day, because I was a week late for our 6-week checkup after we had Holland, and I went to the birth center, and then I found out that you were there, and I was like, oh, please have your phone with you. So I like storm in the room like 2 hours after you gave birth, and I was like, hey. Yeah. And so Holland and Nora met each other when Nora was just born, but
she was still twice her size. 6 weeks.
Oh, and I was so mad at you. Because Katie did her first and second and third naturally, and then you had a C-section for 4. Okay.
Yes.
So she had done the first naturally. I didn't. So Holland was my first natural birth, and I was woefully unprepared. And it was just horrific. And I didn't know someone could be in that much pain and not die. It was just a thing. And she's out, and I looked down at her, and she is a string bean. She weighs nothing. She's like 6 pounds. She was still so tiny. She is still so tiny. She's a bird, but she weighed nothing. And she was just this tiny little peanut. And I was like, after all I went through, that's all I get to show. And then I show up and see you with Nora, and you're like, oh, it was like 2 pushes after like an hour of labor. Man. I'm like, oh man, that's just tough.
She was 9 pounds, 6 ounces. She's my biggest baby.
That was so funny. So anyway, yes.
So funny.
So, but all that to say, so our first 2 were very, very close in age. And then you guys kind of got a little bit more ambitious, we'll say, than we did.
Yeah. And our biggest age gap is, I think, 22 months. So not even a full 2 years between kids.
And she has, like I said in the intro, she has 6 kids, but she didn't cheat with twins. So this is 6 kids in, it
6
was
pregnancies.
8 years though? How old was Liam when?
Liam's 9. So,
but when?
Yeah.
So 8 years, 6 kids, and
no,
is that right?
Because it was 9 years because Edith was born in October and he turned 9 in August.
Oh, okay. 9 years. Okay, still 6 children, 6 pregnancies in 9 years, which is a lot. So talk about that a little bit. So so go ahead. I'm stop talking.
Well, I mean, it was hard with Liam, especially when we had him. We lived in this tiny, dark condo, and he was a great baby, but I know I was struggling with postpartum depression at the time, and just like being hurled into this, and I felt like Neil and I didn't really get a ton of time together. So, and I mean, motherhood for me, like I knew that I wanted kids, but it was sort of like, for me, it was a checklist item, but it was also just a convenience item. Like, we'll have kids when it's convenient. And so this was not convenient to me. But then I kind of like wrote in my notes a little bit of just like, I was upset when I found out I couldn't possibly not have kids. And then I was upset when I found out I was pregnant, because I was a little bit upset after. Like I said, I was just like, God, why?
Right.
But just talk about like dual natured and,
It's true.
And discontentment, and we want what we want and then we can't get what we want, and then we get what we want and then we don't want it. It's just
Romans 7.
Yeah. And I mean, and I say all this with the notion that one day my kids will hear my testimony, or maybe even listen to this episode, but it was not him. It was just me, and it was still God working in me. And the hormones and postpartum depression. I also found out I had I don't even know if it's a condition, but it's just like it's called DMER, DMER, dysphoric milk ejection reflex. And so when you nurse a baby, you are supposed to have this euphoric sort of and a connection.
Yep.
Well, this is the exact opposite. Yes.
Because I had it with Maylee. And I never got like diagnosed or anything with it, but I distinctly remember, because you had shared your experience, and I started experiencing that too. And it was awful. Like it was awful.
And you said it really well one time, but just like the effect of sin in that way, when it's supposed to be such a joyful, you said it much more eloquently, of course, but yeah, it was just so weird, and I didn't know it. I don't think I figured it out or heard about it until maybe a second or third child in. And one of our mutual friends sent me an article and was like, does this sound like you? And I was like, that is exactly it.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of a Harry Potter nerd, but I describe it as like a Dementor is just like sucking all the happiness out of you. And it's not very long. It doesn't last very long. It's sort of just like a cold bucket of water is just dumped on your head, and then it goes away.
It does. And I think that's why you don't like, you just think like it's just a freak thing, or it's not really a big deal because it only lasts a couple of minutes, but it is the most intense, depressive, just almost oppressive
kind of good word.
It just, you can't, and you guys are probably thinking we're crazy, but I'm like, if I hadn't experienced it, I would be like, oh, you just get sad for a minute. Like, no, you get full on depressed for anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes, just however long it takes. And then, but it's like, it hits you out of nowhere and you're a completely different person. Like, it's not like you just like have a sad thought. and then you deal with it and then it's gone. It's like it consumes you, and it does. It sucks the joy and the happiness and the life out of you. And it's supposed to do exactly like you said, the exact opposite. Like it's supposed to give you this like warm, fuzzy feeling and connection to your sweet baby who is nursing and who is receiving a gift from the Lord that literally he created your body to do for your child, and you can't stand it. And it's like, there's a lot that goes into that, but I 100% know. I didn't only had it with one, but it's awful. So yeah, going through all of this, and continue. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I am.
That's okay. That's why it's just a fun conversation.
Yeah.
But just with, all the motherhood stuff and things not going the way that you thought it would go, and then having so many so close together. Because I remember Sarah.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we had a friend, and she also had a Samson. Mm-hmm.
She was the one who told me about Deemer.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All the things that never come out. But her first, when was he born? Very close to ours.
Yes. I want to say Leland's older, but
anyway, still very, very close. Yeah. And then we got together for a play date at her house, and she's like, "We're pregnant." And I was like, "No way, we're pregnant." And then I looked at you. Oh, sweet Katie. And you said, you not smiling at all. And you were like, like, "We're pregnant too." You're like, "We're pregnant too." But it was like,
no.
Or what did you?
I looked at you like you had 5 heads.
That's right. But you were pregnant. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you didn't know you were pregnant, but you were pregnant. Yes. And you looked at us like we were insane. Yes. It's all become clear again. Yes. And I remember this now. Yes.
Yep. Very shortly after that, I sent you a text. And
yes. Was it the picture of the, I don't know which one it was.
It was either ultrasound or a pregnancy test, but I was like, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Okay, I was confusing you. Like, Sean sometimes says like things, and he's like Eeyore about it, and I just for some transpose that on you. But but that is exactly what it was. And then we did the math, and you were pregnant at the time, and you were just like, oh, because you were like, you had it rough. You had it rough postpartum with Liam, and we're not ready, at least in your mind, to have another one. And you guys were still in that little condo, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yes, it was. So I struggled a bit, and one of your questions was, because you asked what are the struggles, and then you asked what is one of the greatest joys. And my first pass through that question was sort of like, I felt like that whole time was a little overshadowed by it. But I think the joy is that God was sanctifying me. And I mean, he does not say anywhere in the Bible that he won't give us more than we can handle. He says, "Consider it joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds." And knowing that trials produce steadfastness, and steadfastness leads to oh man, I have it as a song in my head. We have a memory verse, but perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. There you go.
There you go.
So yeah, I felt that this was more than I can handle, and if trials means joy, then I was really joyful at the time.
Yes. You didn't know it yet, but you were.
Yeah, but of course there's the tangible joys, like the baby smells and the first that they go through.
Yes.
And there were joys. They were there, and but yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. So you had some of that, and then the challenges of having so many children so close together. So there were some, obviously, challenges in that. Yeah. Any that you want to kind of touch on?
Well, so the physical toll, obviously. Yes. That was really trying. And just, I told you we didn't use birth control, but because I was so irregular, I also didn't have really the ability to figure out
right.
Like a natural birth control. And so with each pregnancy, it was just like, God, you know that this is so hard for me. Why does this keep happening so rapidly? And so, yeah, the physical toll was really hard. And then, I mean, you get into the other aspects of just the fact that you're so needed in so many different ways by so many people.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And there's just sort of like an emotional and social exhaustion that comes with sort of like constantly switching modes. Like I need to be able to parent my 9-year-old in the way that he needs a parent, a mom, and I still need to be able to change baby diapers, and I still need to be able to keep my cool for a toddler tantrum.
Right.
And then, I mean, don't even get me into the car aspect of it, because there's like, there's a few cars that fit like 5 kids, but much fewer that fit 6, and it's just like vans from there on out. So if you're not a van person, don't.
Then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
See, Sean is not a van person, so that solidified our decision. But there are some perks to having kids close together too. So
yes,
I won't steal your thunder. I have some, but you have more than me, so you go first.
Well, I mean, you get the close companionship.
Yes.
And I basically I had brothers and a sister, but I pretty much acknowledged my childhood as an only child. Because I was certainly the youngest, and with such an age gap. I always wanted a little brother or sister. And so I remind my kids of that. I'm like, guys, I didn't have somebody.
Right.
So when they're fighting or picking on each other, I'm like, you need to be grateful for each other. And yeah, there's just built-in entertainment all the time. They rarely ever don't have someone to play with.
That is true. I tell them, because I have the parenting philosophy where you need to, bored is a curse word in our house. You come to me and tell me you're bored, you are going to get in trouble.
Oh, I feel very much the same
Yes.
way.
I gave you, and my spiel is, I gave you 4 of each other. Like, there are 4 of you. You can go figure out something to do.
Yeah.
Do it together. Do it by yourself. I don't care. But you have enough. You have enough built-in fun. Go figure it out. Like,
sure.
So I'm 100% with you. And I have one little sister who's 3.5 years apart. And that was kind of almost awkward, because it was like, we weren't close enough to have the same friends, but we weren't like so far away that it was like, I don't know. It was kind of a weird gap. And we were not close at all when we were young. We did kind of get close kind of later on, but yeah, so I love the built-in companionship thing. Like, our girls are best friends, and then you and my girls are also very, very close friends when we can pull Nora away. Well, all 3 of them now away from the boys and have tea parties and stuff. So
I have 3 girls and 3 boys.
Yes.
I don't know if
yes,
it's
boy, girl, boy, girl.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so marriage, but then there's like, you're married and you're still pretty newlywedish, especially when all these children start coming. So you're having to kind of figure that out. So I would say that was actually a really bad question. How has your marriage changed since becoming a mother? But you kind of didn't have a marriage before becoming a mother. You became a mother very quickly after you got married. But like, what have you learned as a wife, how to be a wife in the throes of also being a mom? Because I would imagine that has some challenges too. Like, you would like to give Neil attention, but then the urgency of littles kind of takes that time. So how did that all?
Yeah. And he's very much a superhero in our house. So his attention is high in demand, but by all of us. But yeah, I mean, we had a choice that we could grow together closer or grow apart. And I think while our kids were growing up, we were growing closer together. And I think that marriages that tend to drift apart after kids kind of happen from wrongly ordered love.
Yeah.
So whether it's love of self or you're putting your kids first.
Yes.
Or even if you're putting your spouse first, because God's the one that's supposed to come first.
Amen.
So we really found that we had no choice but to lean into each other and lean on God. And my husband's always saying that love is just putting someone else before yourself. And so when you're constantly putting one other person before yourself, it's one thing, but then you're putting 1, 2, 3, 4, you become less and less.
Yeah.
And it's not in a bad way. I mean, I feel like we're so bombarded with self-love, and I just don't think that that's a requirement. That's not a requirement in the Bible. I don't think we're not told to love ourselves first, and it's not an oxygen mask situation.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I've never thought about it like that. That's awesome.
And so yeah. I mean, just like that day that I chose not to drink, I mean, that's just sort of been and that's what we tell our kids. Loving someone, you don't just say I love you, but you're putting that person before yourself. And so I mean, that's another aspect of the kids having siblings, is that they get to problem solve and learn about people and consider others before themselves. And I mean, of course that takes like very active parenting and training, but because we need that too. But absolutely. But yeah. And then, I mean, just like realizing that we're really in this together, because I think when it's the two of you, you can tend to sometimes feel like it's me versus you, or but then when you have the kids and that, it's always united front, the two of you. And I mean, even if you feel that what your spouse is saying is not correct, you present you present that that you're a united front, and you wait and you of course talk about it. So I think that's just how we have seen parenthood affect and change our marriage.
I love that. Well, I love the misplaced priorities, and I've talked about that before, and it's something that God did a number on me about. But we do have priority. We have God-given biblical priorities, and it starts with Him first and foremost. Like, He is our first priority. And then if you're married, it's your spouse. And that is always number 2, always. And it just kills me when I'm seeing these moms who are basically worshiping their children and living for their children. Like, are you supposed to love your children? Absolutely. Like, you're supposed to be there for them? Yes. You don't live for them. And they are third. They are third. They are after God. They are after your husband. And then you have your children. But that's exactly, like, I couldn't agree with you more. Don't misplace your priorities, because that's where marriage is going to go right. And just like you said too, you can misplace the priority of your marriage to hold them up before God. Because if you're doing that, then you're expecting things of them that you can only find fulfillment in God and your relationship with Christ. And you're looking to them to be your savior, and you're looking for them to be your peace, and you're looking to them for your fulfillment and for your joy and for everything that only God can give, and we should only be seeking after in the Lord. And yes, He blesses us through other ways of receiving that, but it's primarily from the Lord. So I love that. And the C.S. Lewis quote, humility isn't thinking less of or isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Yep.
Like, I love that. But also, to your point too, it's not just thinking of yourself less, because you can't do that in a vacuum. You have to put somebody else in that place. So you can't just like think less of start thinking of yourself less. Like, that's not how it works. In order to do that, you have to think more of other people. And so you're right, when you have all these little ones and then you're in the throes of just insanity and chaos all the time, you have to be very vigilant about who you are putting on the throne of your heart and who you are putting just before yourself. And just like this sweet little nursery, Jesus and others in you, what a wonderful way to spell joy, right? Like that's how it's supposed to be. And that's how God says it. And you're right. He never says anywhere in scripture, love yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, we're supposed to take care of our bodies because they are temples of the Holy Spirit. But
of course, yes, there are practical things. Showers work wonders.
I mean, a nap.
Like, I cannot do another thing until I take a shower.
I actually read something that was really funny today, and I won't get like too off on the theology of it, but basically saying like Elijah after Mount Carmel was like throwing a fit, and he's mad and like he wants to die, and he's telling God to kill him, and he's like, oh, I just want to die, just take me now. And what does God do? He feeds him and tells him to take a nap. Like that's what he tells him to do. Like how many problems of ours would be solved if we just had the right food and then we took a nap? Like sometimes we just need that physical break and to chill. So yes, we take care of ourselves. So we're not saying put everyone's needs and everyone's wants always in front of you all the time. Like, no, there is a point in time where there is a physical oxygen mask situation where like, hey, I have to like eat now because I'm going to pass out. So
for sure,
just simmer down. But spiritually, but even in that moment, you're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing it to escape from the reality that is your world. You're doing it so you can be a better servant of the Lord, so you can be a better wife, so you can be a better mother, so you can be there for them in a way that they need you and the way that God has created you to be. So even in taking care of yourself, you're not doing it for pride, and you're not doing it so you can just feel better about yourself or figure yourself out or all the other things that the culture and world is saying. You're doing it so that you can be a better, more equipped, better armed, how many metaphors am I use? Soldier of the Lord. Like you have to take care of yourself and make sure you build that up so that you can be more effective in your walk.
And I don't want anyone to misunderstand me because it's not like I got this on the first try.
No, right, like exactly.
And there were very much times where I tried to find fulfillment in other ways, or sort of disassociate from this responsibility if it felt overwhelming. But yeah, it was more of like a trial by fire thing for me. Exactly.
Okay, so because this is shocking, we're talking a long time. I'm going to try to narrow it down to just a couple more. Okay, what is one piece of advice that you would give to a new mom who is struggling? I'll just leave it at that. A new mom who is struggling.
So I would say first, if you're not already, that you need to be plugged into a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching church.
Amen.
Because you need, assuming of course that you already have Christ.
Yes.
But you need a community who isn't just going to listen to your woes, but can equip you with tools. And you need both peers and mentors, because you need women who can say, yes, you will get through this.
Right.
And you need someone to walk through it with you. And of course you have your husband, but another mom's walking with you is huge. I mean, when I first had my first, I felt like I didn't have any friends who were having babies also, and you were. But like you said, we were not as close. And I also really don't think that I was trying to reach out to people or searching very hard for that. And I think that just made things worse. And so I think you need a community for sure. And yeah, you need biblical resources, and you can get that, well, from God's word, but from people who know more or have been through it. And so I think that's just like a practical advice. And then spiritually, I would say just lean into the trial. I mean, I think we spend so much energy trying to escape it. And like I said, we're supposed to consider it joy. And God loves you so much that he isn't going to let you stay in the same place. You know, he wants you to grow, be closer to him. And that's a good thing. I tell my kids, even recently, we've just been having a struggle with working hard. I mean, and my grandmother would say, everything that's worth doing is worth doing right. So,
exactly.
I mean, this is hard work, and
it is.
It's pruning, and it's not comfortable, and it's painful even. And so, but it's good.
Yes, absolutely. It's good because that's how we get sharpened, and that's how we grow. And that is how God has, like, we live in a broken world. We are not promised. And I think that's a lie, unfortunately, that a lot of churches are spewing is, oh, come to Jesus. He's going to solve all your problems and you're going to have a happy, wonderful American pursuit of happiness life as, you know, in Jesus. But like, he's just going to magically fix everything and you're going to be hunky dory and healthy and wealthy and prosperous and all this other stuff. And it's just, that's a lie. It's a lie from Satan. It's not true. We are promised trial. We are promised persecution because this is the world that we live in. And it's to remind us that this isn't our home. And yet, what does he say? He's overcome. In this world, you will have trial. In this world, you will have persecution, but take heart because I have overcome the world. And it teaches us dependence on him. And it teaches us how to lean into him. And I love how you said that because, and of course, because who we are and, you know, who I am. But I immediately went to when I was woefully unprepared for baby number 2. And for baby number 3, I was like, all right, I'm going to be prepared. So I researched like all the coping mechanisms for labor. And like, I had a list, I wrote out a list. And so when I started, cause you don't know which one's going to work until you're like actually in the moment. Yeah. So I had a list and I started just,
none of them work.
And sometimes none of them work. This is fair. Yeah. Sorry to burst that bubble for anyone who's pregnant, but sometimes they don't work. But for this one, I was like, okay. And I got down to, I don't remember, it was like number 3 or 4. And it was lean into the contraction, like lean into the pain, run into it. Don't try to avoid it because again, when we're in pain, it's that we like to take flight, especially like I do. I'm like, no, don't touch me, leave me alone. And you freeze. And this was saying fight, go into it, lean into it. And I am telling you that worked. I don't know why that worked, but it really did work. And I love that advice because God is not wasting this trial in your life. Lean into it. And yes, it might hurt and maybe it will hurt and maybe it will be more pain than you ever thought that you would ever be able to possibly endure. But Jesus says, walk through the valley of the shadow of death as I walk. Jesus didn't say that. David said that in the Bible. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, like you're walking through it, but you're not doing it alone. Not only is he on the other side, he's with you. He's literally, if you are a Christian and you know Jesus, he is in your soul through his Holy Spirit. He is indwelling you and he is walking with you through that valley of death. We cannot handle it on our own, but he can. And we can lean into him and we can't walk through that valley. We can't take that walk unless he is with us because we would shrivel up and die. Yeah. Like the things of this world are hard. They're hard. And all of these experiences, whether they're trauma growing up and trauma with your dad and just experiencing a broken family to all kinds of just getting kind of hit over and over like waves. It's almost like waves crashing over you and you can't like even really stand up. You can't. So just surrender to the Spirit working in your life and hold on to him for dear life because that is where your joy comes from. And it's so anti-culture and it's so anti-wisdom, like just common wisdom where the world would say, well, fight for yourself, you know, defend yourself, put yourself first, get yourself where you need to be. And then you can start, you know, caring about other people. It's like, no, roll over. Like we're supposed to die to ourselves and hold on to Jesus and say, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, have your way. And don't let Don't let go. And that's honestly, when you said that in the beginning part of your testimony, how sweet the Lord was to not let you go. Like, that has been such a refrain in my life, because I've also seen, like, when my rebellious years was when I was a teenager, and I very distinctly remember times where I'm like, I absolutely could die right now. Like, I'm putting myself in a stupid situation, and he didn't let me go. Mm-hmm. And it's like, he's not going to let you go, friends. Like, he has taken us all through all kinds of twists and turns, but we are to lean into him and are supposed to always lift him up, because when we do, he'll lift us right back up on our feet and make us stronger for it. And better, more so, he will make himself known through us, which is the goal. So I love that. And I think the most fitting verse to end on, or passage, I guess. Oh, there's so much though. I feel like all of Philippians, really. I've thought of Philippians multiple times in this conversation, and now I'm like, I'm going to start there. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I think I'm going to start here in Philippians 1:21, which says, quote, For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labor for me, for I do not know which to choose. But I am hard pressed from both directions, having the desire to depart and be with Christ, unquote, can I get an amen? Quote, for that is very much better, unquote, like, understatement of the century. very, very much better. Quote, yet to remain on in the flesh is more necessary for your sake. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy in the faith, so that your proud confidence in me may abound in Christ Jesus through my coming to you. And then he goes on, this is Paul. Therefore, if there is any encouragement in Christ, any consolation in love, any fellowship of the Spirit, any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, maintaining the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant and being made in the likeness of men. Being found in appearance of a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross, unquote. So I love that. I love your story. I love how he didn't ever let you go and how he consistently drew you to him. I love how I just will always remember so fondly of our many hours of conversations in the car while we waited for our daughters to dance, and how I was just always so refreshed by seeing God working in your life and giving you just far more of a passion for his word, and just sanctifying you in front of my eyes, which was just, and myself sanctifying you as if I'd made it. We are being sanctified together and just having these probing conversations. And so I love you. I love your story. I'm so thankful for you. And, we'll have to just continue to keep doing this as we get, more mature.
Yeah. That'd be so fun.
In our walk. We'll
but
come
it
back.
also feels like we're in the car again.
It really does. It really does.
So more officially.
See, we should have just done that. We should have just recorded. Well, so my book, Jesus in What Context, was basically written from conversations that we had in that car. And I say the car, we weren't like being weird. It was COVID. So we should probably clarify that. We weren't just being strange. Well, maybe we are, but we weren't allowed to do anything else. Anyway, but I digress. So yes, we will put a pin in it for now, but thank you so much
thank you for having me. I'm so honored. Like, who am I? This is awesome.
But then that's the best part, is that it's neither one of us. Like, this is obviously always for the glory of the Lord. So thank you for listening, friends. I hope that you really were able to hear the joy of the Lord in our conversation, and that you were touched by Katie's story. We prayed before We even started for you and asked the Lord to touch your heart. And if he has, and you have questions and want to reach out, please email me. All the information is linked below. But know first and foremost that the Lord and the Lord alone is your joy. And he alone is your peace, and he alone is your salvation. If you don't know him yet, please reach out and ask more about that. And I would be thrilled to have that conversation with you. But if you are struggling right now, please just remember that he is writing his story in your life, and it is not in vain, and it is not a waste. And he is not just letting you go through something to make you miserable. He is sharpening you. He is putting you through that refiner's fire so that you will come out and emerge from that so much more beautiful and radiating his glory like you hadn't before. And I just get all of those vibes, for lack of a better word, from Katie's story, and I hope that you did too. Thank you so much again for being here, and we'll talk again soon.